Welcome back, ghouls, ghosts, and goblins, to Dick Rogers, Space Detective, and back to another episode to die for. Get it? Die?
I think it's a little early in the year to record our Halloween episode.
No, die, like dice. You know, roll for initiative.
I was never good at poker.
Poker doesn't use dice.
I think we're already off the rails here. In the effort of getting this campaign back on track, we still need to introduce our guest.
Yeah, sorry about that. No plan ever survives contact with the players, after all. But please, Evangeline, introduce yourself.
Thank you. I'm Evangeline Woodward. I was in the live show, but there wasn't a lot of time for proper introductions. I grew up on a ranch in Montana, and my folks didn't have a lot of modern tech, but what they did have was old radio serial reels. They were collectors, so I developed a deep love for the old radio shows that has never gone away. And when I grew up and moved to the Midwest, I found the N.E.R.D.S, and here we are.
And we're happy to have you. Now tell me, both of you, have either of you ever played D&D?
A few times. I'm more of a Shadowrun guy myself.
Oh, no. My parents thought it was the devil's game. We were a Warhammer 40K household.
Oh, I feel bad for your wallet.
They're fun to paint. Plus, my Gene Stealer cult has been undefeated so far. But why do you ask?
Well, our episode for today has some connection to the now popular tabletop game. This episode was released in 1976, just 2 years after the game's immediate rise to popularity among our nerd ancestors.
I didn't realize N.E.R.D.S was that old.
No. Not N.E.R.D.S, just regular nerds. The writer of today's episode was definitely among them, as it features Dick being pulled into a more fantasy-themed adventure.
But Dick Rogers is a sci-fi series, not fantasy. How does that work?
Well, there's only one way to find out. So roll for initiative and make sure you have your spells prepared as we delve into Dick Rogers and the Dungeon of Doom, Part 1.
Welcome back, listeners, to the thrilling adventures of Dick Rogers, Space Detective. Last week, our hero was in hot pursuit of a notorious criminal, the dangerous and deadly Draugr Magori, who had recently escaped from captivity. A daring chase through Space Station Zima led to an explosive dogfight. We rejoin Dick as he attempts to reason with his target in this week's episode, Dick Rogers and the Dungeon of Doom.
You can't outmaneuver me, Magori. I have years of experience over you.
Maybe so, Rogers, but you lack one thing: improvisational skills.
Slipstream engine detected.
Oh, no, you don't.
Dick fired his thermo rockets at Magori's ship, hitting the engine a fraction of a second before it slipped into the warp zone, disappearing from space as we know it.
That should have knocked him off course. He can't have gotten that far. Computer, follow his warp trail.
Affirmative. Engaging slipstream. 3, 2, 1.
Dick's ship shot into the warp zone at ludicrous speed, following the trajectory of Draugr Magori's ship. Dick exited warp in sight of a beautiful but unfamiliar planet, almost Earth-like in appearance, but the sight was interrupted by multiple impacts hitting Dick's ship.
Space mines! He set a trap for me.
Dick struggled to remain in control of his damaged ship as the mines took out his navigation system.
Severe damage sustained. Engine failure. Prepare for emergency landing.
Dick's knuckles turned white as he gripped the controls and tried to steer his stricken ship, but he had already been caught in the planet's gravitational pull. Dick's ship shuddered as it entered the atmosphere, the ground beneath rising to meet him at a quickening rate until... The next time Dick opened his eyes, his head and body ached. As his vision began to clear, an unfamiliar ceiling came into view.
He's waking up.
Dick sat up, squinting into the room only to find a sword in his face. The person holding the weapon was an unexpectedly human-looking man with short blonde hair and a stern expression.
You've got 17 seconds to convince me dragging you out of your sky chariot and giving you a bed to rest in wasn't a waste of effort.
Istok, give him a moment to get his bearings. I know you're upset.
This voice belonged to a tall woman clothed in green robes. She had dark hair and very pronounced pointed ears. In her hand was a long wooden staff.
Upset? Britt and I, we're past upset. A demon fell from the sky, caused havoc and terror in my town, and then made off, leaving chaos in his wake. And now, for all we know, this is one of his companions.
He don't look like the other one.
A smaller figure seemed to appear beside Dick, almost as if she were invisible moments before. Much smaller in stature with light green skin and a tail. Dick also noticed she was carrying his blaster pistol on her hip.
Demons are crafty. They lie, they disguise themselves, they can't be trusted.
They'd have to get up pretty early in the morning to get one past me. By the way, Sky Man, I can see you eyeing my new toy. Don't think you're getting it back anytime soon. Finders keepers. Besides, my friend here is about to take your head off, so you won't need it.
You've had your moment. Talk now.
Dick began to realize what was happening here. He had landed on an underdeveloped planet. He had to be very careful about his next words. Jif law forbade interference on planets that had yet to develop space travel, and judging from the few context clues he had been given, this planet was still very far off from that point.
My name is Dick Rogers, and where I come from, I enforce the law. The being you described, this demon, I assume he was very big, reptilian in appearance, red scales?
He had the face of a dragon, aye. Stronger than 10 men, cruel and violent.
He's a dangerous criminal, and I've been sent to capture him.
So you've been sent by the gods.
Yes. The, gods want to keep this whole thing as quiet as possible, though. They don't wish to interfere in the lives of mortals.
The room was silent for a moment as the three considered Dick's words, but after a heartbeat, the man lowered his weapon.
We'll hear you out. For now. But if you wish to keep a low profile, you'll have to find something else to wear.
Dick looked down at his now tattered and slightly burned spacesuit. He definitely stood out from the others.
I'd like my weapon back, now that you're not going to cut my head off.
What you trading for it?
Feck, give it back. He'll need it if he's going to pursue the demon.
Never. Doesn't do anything anyway.
It's coded, enchanted to only work for me.
I suppose introductions are in order. I'm Iztok, adventurer and swordsman. With me is Britt and I, our mage, and...
Feck at your service. Folks call me a thief. I prefer the term acquisition specialist. Some of the things I acquire just used to belong to someone else.
After the introductions, Dick was given a more locally appropriate change of clothes, and once he was changed, he tried to gather information about his predicament.
So, where am I?
This land is called Eurola. We're in the city of Falden, which has a quite rich backstory. Long ago, before the Walks had muddled...
We can't sit around all night telling stories. He's got a demon to catch.
Right. So where did he go?
Witnesses say he went on a rampage through town, roughed up some locals, and apparently shook some people down for information. It's said he carried a weapon like yours. In a matter of hours, he had amassed a posse of criminals and the like. They robbed a few shops and apparently headed towards the dungeon.
Dungeon?
A colloquial term. The legends say that the common folk like Iztok descended from travelers beyond the sky, much like yourself. Their vessel supposedly crashed into a mountainside nearby, submerging most of it underground, and it's said the city of Falden was their first settlement. That original vessel was buried for a very long time, but in recent years, research expeditions have gone into the vessel and found it infested with monsters. Adventurers have been trying to clear it out, but it's been something of an uphill battle. People have come to call the place a dungeon because of how dangerous it can be.
Boy, and the traps keep resetting too. Not sure who's going through and doing that. Monsters ain't smart enough.
This tale gave Dick pause. He wondered how much of it was true. It made him ponder on the true origin of the people of this world, but there was no time for that.
Then I'll have to follow him. But why would he want to go there?
There are many legends about what lies in the depths of the dungeon. Treasure, legendary weaponry. Some even say there's a portal or some way to get to the land of the gods.
Dick realized Megori was probably looking for a way off-world. His own ship was likely also damaged beyond repair.
He can't be allowed to escape. I appreciate what you've already done for me. I can't ask that you come with me into the, dungeon.
It would be wildly irresponsible to let you go alone.
You'd be dead on the first floor, wandering around with no guide or experience or nothing.
We ventured inside before. We know the layout, and while we've never been all the way to the bottom, we know our way around well enough to hopefully help you catch this man.
During his initial rampage, he broke into the city guardhouse and recruited criminals, thieves, and murderers to his cause. So he's not alone. even with the 4 of us, you'll have to be pretty careful.
I've been outnumbered before. Not my first rodeo.
I don't know what the rodeo is, but I know one is never truly prepared for their first trip into the dungeon.
Well, one thing's for sure. I'm going to need my gun back.
In your dreams, Skyman.
As our party prepares for their adventure, join us in a word from our sponsor.
How do you do, fellow kids? It's me, Skeevy Mike, with a new product here just for you. Do you like board games? Of course you do. Well, I've got your new favorite board game right here. Introducing Skeevy Mike's Sales and the Salaryman. I know what you're thinking. How do you play? Well, I'm glad you asked. 1 second, let me get the rule book. Let me just open the rule book. First, you roll the dice to determine your turn order. Then, based on that order, you distribute stock cards. These are very important. Make sure you don't show your opponent. Now, you take turns trading stocks with the banker, and the banker changes each turn, so you have to try. After the first 30 minutes, then you have a stock battle. This is when you take your stocks against the stock deck, and if you win, creates a new deck of stocks to take to market and try to make a. Watch out, if someone draws a market crash card, they get to declare a type of stock, and everyone loses that type of stock for. Your turn, you're going to roll 7 dice. That will determine how many dice you roll. Then you add up your total dice score. That's the amount of stock you can. If you're feeling real wacky, you don't have to buy the stocks, you can short them. Then you're betting that the market will go down. But watch out, if the other players catch on, they can buy that stock, causing the price to skyrocket. You'll get squeezed right out of the market. Uh-oh, looks like your game just stopped. After the first 8 turns, that's the end of the first trading day. Now we play by the after-hours trading rule. If you want your character to trade after hours, you're going to need special stock market powder that gives your character energy to keep going all night. And whoever ends the game with the highest value stocks wins. Doesn't that sound fun? And the game contains only 300 pieces. You're definitely not going to lose any of those the first time you open the box. So call now and give us your pledge. Did I mention this was a crowdfunding campaign? It's a crowdfunding campaign! So call now, and if you pledge at least $87, you'll also get the first expansion for free. So call now. We all look forward to your call. It's definitely not just me. I have operators standing by.
We return to our heroes, now prepared and taking their first steps into the entrance of the dungeon.
I've been meaning to ask, Dick, how does that weapon of yours work?
Do you know what a crossbow is?
Yes.
It's like that, but magic. In fact, I'll show you right now if Feck will give it back.
Tell you what, you remove the enchantment and I'll show him how it works.
So this dungeon, the entrance is rather unassuming. It's mostly just a cave?
Yes, it becomes a lot more structured as you go further.
But first, it looks like we've got company.
Dick readied the sharpened stick he had been given, but the only thing he saw were small translucent creatures, almost appearing to be made of a living liquid.
These things?
Slimes. Not terribly dangerous individually, but in a group they can mash together into one larger unit. If you're not careful, they could overtake you. You mostly see them on the higher levels. The more dangerous monsters are the deeper ones, tend to scare them away.
They mostly feed on things like rats and other small creatures.
Before Dick could respond, a slimy blob fell from the ceiling and landed on his head. A larger slime creature had been lying in wait. Already, Dick could feel a tingling sensation on his skin.
The creature's starting to digest him.
Serves him right for not showing me how to use the gun.
Shut up!
Panic set in as he tried to pull the creature off of him, but his hands became stuck inside the creature as well. Thankfully, the other members of his party acted quickly, and Britt and I hit the creature with a sudden burst of cold energy, freezing the creature and allowing Dick to pull it off of him.
First rule of the dungeon: never underestimate the dungeon. Even the higher levels could have unknown dangers.
Thanks. I'll keep that in mind.
Since we've got ourselves a frozen one, might as well not let it go to waste.
Are you eating that?
Of course. Frozen slime tastes great. They're also full of nutrients, so they're very good for you.
Some have made a business out of farming the creatures, freezing them with magic and then selling them.
Here, try it.
I think I'm good.
Try it.
All right, fine.
Dick took a piece of the frozen slime creature and reluctantly put it in his mouth. He found it had a texture similar to shaved ice and a surprisingly sweet, almost raspberry-like flavor.
Wow, that is pretty good, actually.
Most monsters in the dungeon are edible, one way or another.
They're all edible if you're brave enough. Some of them are only edible once.
The safe ones make for popular dishes. Hunters willing to go into the dungeon for these monsters are well paid for, but those jobs are incredibly dangerous.
Each level becomes more dangerous the further down you go.
Well, let's not keep them waiting. Megori is already ahead of us.
The party moved on, descending to the next level of the dungeon. Rough rock walls gave way to smoother infrastructure. Walls and floor now made of metal in a way that was oddly familiar to Dick. And then it hit him. This was a GIF ship. It suddenly all made sense. A GIF colony ship had crash-landed on this planet, the survivors settling and becoming the ancestors of the human-like population like Iztok. Dick wondered how it had happened. For it to be possible, the ship had to have crashed thousands of years ago, long before the GIF was even established.
Dick, we're coming up on a trap. Hang back.
Dick snapped out of his train of thought. He looked up to see a long corridor with a pair of laser turrets at the end. Security measures that Dick was surprised to see still functioned. GIF ships had a level of autonomy that allowed them to function even without human input. But the fact that the ship's power source was still active after so long amazed him.
So what do we do?
You step back and let me do my job. That's what I'm here for.
Feck raised the hood of her cloak and actually became invisible. She then stepped into the hallway, keeping low to the ground and quietly and quickly moving towards the turrets, avoiding their detection entirely. She moved behind them and activated a panel on the wall that deactivated the turrets. It suddenly made sense as to why the traps of the dungeon were reactivating. The ship's automated security system was turning them back on.
How many levels have been documented?
Around 50, but there's definitely more that haven't been reached.
Makes sense. Colony ships are large. That would account for maybe a third.
Something you'd like to share?
I'm familiar with the sky vessel you spoke of earlier. I might know of a shortcut that could help us catch up.
Dick took the lead, making his way through corridors and looking for something specific. Then he found it, a keypad that he punched his own GIF ID into. Sure enough, the wall next to him opened up, revealing an elevator.
How did you know about this?
I've been stationed on similar vessels before. Service elevators like this one won't take us all the way, but it'll take us about 20 levels down. Looks like the livestock and agriculture wing.
The party entered the elevator, and Dick pressed the button that would take them as far down as they could go. When the doors opened again, they were on a new level, surrounded by storage pods. Some had been opened and emptied by now. Others were still sealed.
You said this was livestock and agriculture. I'm seeing a distinct lack of either.
Interstellar sublight travel doesn't really allow you to keep complex living plants and animals on board. Seeds for plants are kept in cold storage. As for animals, well, we keep raw DNA and use it to clone livestock and other beasts of burden as needed. It also allows us to modify the outcome in case of a need for unique properties that don't exist on their own. Livestock that survives freezing temperatures, animals that can live in higher gravity environments, so on and so forth. We can do the same for plants that also wouldn't grow in the environment of any given planet.
And my ancestors used processes like these when they first came to this world?
That's what I'm starting to figure out. The cloning chamber should be up ahead.
The party moved forward, entering a cavernous room. At the far end was a large machine attached to a computer console, but the room was not empty. Inside was none other than Draugr McGorry and his band of criminals. Draugr himself was accessing the machine. He seemed like he had integrated himself well with the locals, wearing metal armor and carrying a huge sword on his back. Dick reached for his blaster, only to find the empty holster. He decided to press on without the warning shot.
Draugr McGorry, by GIF authority, I place you under arrest. Cease your activity and lay down your weapons. You and your associates are to come peacefully or face dire consequences.
I'm surprised you caught up so quickly, Dick. You know, the way I see it, this is a perfect chance for a fresh start for all of us. This seems like a place that suits me well. And you, Dick, aren't you tired of chasing guys like me all the time? Maybe it's time to retire, start a farm or something. Doesn't that sound nice?
I'm not going to stand by and let scum like you do as they please.
I tried.
If you're going to forgo the peaceful option, I'm not above taking you in the hard way.
Tell you what, Dick. I'll meet you halfway. You can have something of mine.
What do you mean?
Funny thing about this cloning machine, you can actually add new DNA to it. I may have donated a little bit of my blood and, well, you'll see. Let's go, boys!
One of McGorry's goons threw a crude explosive. Dick and his party dodged out of the way, but it turned out to be a smoke grenade, obscuring the vision of Dick and his party. When the smoke cleared, McGorry and his party had disappeared. The machine was still active, building something inside of the chamber. Dick rushed to the console and accessed the activity logs.
What did he do?
Combing through the cloning machine's logs told Dick a lot.
This machine has been very active since the ship crashed. The ship's automated system had started combining DNA and creating monsters. This is where the dungeon's population of creatures was coming from. That's how they are reproducing so quickly.
But Dick didn't have to search the log to figure out what McGorry had created. The creature suddenly burst out of the cloning chamber, roaring to life in an apparent rage as the party got its first look at it. The creature was a massive, four-legged reptile with red scales.
Dragon, take cover!
The beast roared and began to spray fire from its mouth in a 15-foot cone. The party scattered to avoid the beast. Britt and I raised her staff and summoned ethereal vines to bind the creature's mouth shut.
That ain't gonna last long, Sky Man. Hope you're fast on your feet.
Will Dick and his party survive this encounter, or will McGorry's dragon be their demise? Find out after these messages.
Hey kids, it's me again, Skeevy Mike, and I'm back to let you know that the expansion to the sequel to Sales and the Salarymen is here now. Crash the Market. With Crash the Market, you can tear it all down. Down come the walls of capitalist oppression, all in the safety of our own homes, and all for the low price of $120. That's at a 40% discount. Please note that the previous 2 games are required. Live out your fantasy of being sent back to the Stone Age and starting new. Money? Don't worry about it. We're going back to the barter system. Trade with other players for goods and services. But watch out for the mutated zombies. Untold horrors await you in the world of Crash the Market. Can you survive? Call us now and get your copy of this brand new and definitely not cursed board game expansion. Call us at 555-0100. That number again is 555-0100.
We returned to Dick and the party in grave danger. A dragon cloned from Draugr McGorry's blood rampaging through the room, its maw bound by magical vines as the group tried to figure out some kind of plan.
It's too big for the room. It can't maneuver.
If we can knock it down, it'll have trouble getting back up.
The dragon tore free of its bindings, roaring wildly and turning its attention to the fore.
Feck, keep it distracted. Buy us some time.
You lot owe me if we survive this.
Feck pulled up the hood of her cloak and once again became invisible. Dick was unable to track her movements, but seeing the dragon react as if something was attacking its face meant she was trying to keep it busy.
This thing just came to life. It's running on instinct. It's confused and it doesn't have the coordination. If we could take the legs out from under it.
I can cast another Binding Vine spell, but once it's done, what then?
Even a dragon's underbelly is well guarded by a high armor class. I can slip a blade between its scales if I can get close, but the only area that might do any real damage is the neck. Even then, I'd be attacking at a disadvantage.
It's better than nothing.
What about you, Dick?
I'll help Feck keep it busy while you two knock it down.
The dragon swung its head, knocking Feck to the ground as she became visible once again.
I hope you knobheads are finished. He's figured out my invisibility trick.
The dragon loomed over them, opening its mouth as it was about to unleash its fire again. But before the party could be burned to a crisp, Britt and I raised her staff and summoned a sphere of light to shield them from the blast. Dick could still feel the heat from the flames around them, even as Britt and I held back the bulk of it. But as the flames subsided, Dick snuck his blaster out of Feck's belt and quickly fired a plasma bolt directly into the dragon's mouth.
I think you're just talking it off now, mate.
That's the idea. We're running interference.
The dragon tried to trample them, but Dick and the party were able to dodge, splitting into their two pre-planned groups.
Can you go invisible again?
I've only got a couple more uses of this cloak, but yeah.
Get in its face again. Go for the eyes. Blind it.
Got a bag of sting root powder that can do the job.
Good. Now get going.
Feck pulled the hood of her cloak up once more, fading away from view as Dick continued to concentrate his blaster fire on the dragon to keep its attention. Feck invisibly clambered up the side of the beast and onto its head. From her belt, she withdrew a pouch and threw the powder inside, into the eyes of the dragon. With sight temporarily taken from it, the dragon flailed wildly, swinging its clawed limbs in every direction, spewing fire from its mouth as Britt and I unleashed her spell. Large vines emerged from the ground, wrapping around the limbs of the dragon. With the large beast unbalanced and blinded, it stumbled and fell. It was Iztok's turn. Blade drawn, he rushed forward to the struggling monster. The dragon's neck exposed, he thrust his blade forward and struck true. The cold metal sank between the hard scales of the dragon's neck. The dragon roared with rage. This singular wound would not be enough to end it. It struggled and broke free of the vines that bound it, standing upright again.
Well, to be fair, it wasn't a great plan, but for what it's worth, we had a good run.
Can we do it again?
I'm incapable of casting more spells of that quality without rest.
We'll figure something else out. Stay nimble.
Something's wrong. Is it melting?
The body of the dragon did appear to be melting, falling apart at the seams.
Of course! Draugr didn't know how to use the cloning machine properly. This creature is slapped together at best. It's genetically unstable. It's a miracle it even lasted this long.
The group watched as the mighty dragon before them devolved into a pile of genetic sludge.
Kinda looks like the slimes from the first floor, isn't it?
It wouldn't surprise me if those creatures were actually failed genetic creations that managed to survive in such a state.
Oh, and we've been eating them.
I wonder what this one tastes like.
Considering it has Draugr's DNA in it, I wouldn't.
What was that?
Never mind.
For the record, what's his name tastes pretty good.
I'll take your word for it. We should get moving. Draugr's already got a head start.
We may have to risk it. Britt and I requires rest. We all do if we're expected to face Draugr and his men. If you have more shortcuts in mind like the one you used before, we'll be able to catch up to them with little issue. Besides, I have no doubt Draugr and his party will also have to have a rest, as we do.
Plus, the other traps and monsters of the dungeon may slow them down. If they truly intend to reach the bottom, there are other dangers no one has seen before.
If we're especially lucky, they may do our job for us.
I'd prefer to take Draugr back alive, but you do have a point. We'll rest here for now, get our bearings, and recover as much as we can.
You seriously might want to try some of this dragon jelly. It's really good.
No!
And as our party takes a short rest, we recommend you do the same. But be sure to come back for the conclusion of this thrilling adventure of Dick Rogers, Space Detective. Same space time, same space channel. Next week, Dick Rogers and the Dungeon of Doom, Part 2!
I wonder what dragon jelly tastes like.
I know, right? That's all I can think about now.
I'd really not want to think about the implications of food that's been, well, that genetically altered.
Oh, I do. It's actually super interesting. The idea that we could essentially 3D print food. It could solve all kinds of hunger problems, not to mention lessen the impact of things like the beef industry has on the environment.
It's like that thing that they have on Star Trek, the replicator.
Not to steer us back on track or anything, but we do have an episode to finish out.
Oh, yeah, right. That was a super exciting episode and makes me want to bust out my monster manual and draft up a new campaign.
The idea that the monsters were being spawned from an overactive cloning machine was a very interesting one. A fascinating way to combine sci-fi and fantasy elements in a way that feels surprisingly natural. I hope we're able to dig up the second half of this episode. I'd really like to find out what the treasure at the end of the dungeon turns out to be.
You know, since you guys never played much D&D before this, maybe now's a good time to get in. I can put together a one-shot real quick, and you guys can draft up characters.
Well, before we do that, we'll have to finish this episode.
All right. Hit them with the socials.
We're on Facebook at Dick Rogers Pod, on Instagram at Dick Rogers Space Detective, and Twitter at Rogers Space. And you can join the nerds on Patreon at patreon.com/space_detective. Good night, everybody.
And make sure to join us for your next Dick appointment. Same space time, same space place.
I think I'm gonna be a bard.
This episode's nerds are Angela Ventris as Eleanor and Feck, Brittany Stone as Evangeline and Dick Rogers, Michael Storm as Mike Nutley is Talkin' Ski v. Mike, Nicholas Johnson as narrator and Draugr, and Logan Wright as ship computer and Brittany. Dick Rogers in the Dungeon of Doom was written by Logan Wright, music by Nicholas Johnson, sound design by Michael Storm, and audio editing by Nicholas Johnson.